UFC 308 is going down this weekend in the Octagon, and you are not going to want to miss it. You can make Fight Night even more exciting by getting in on the action with my partners, DraftKings. Right now, all new customers who bet $5 will get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Sign up using my code Sonnen. DraftKings, the crown is yours. You can also stay in on the NFL action and use your $200 in bonus bets to bet anytime touchdowns on DraftKings. DraftKings is the place to bet touchdowns. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers, download the app. Use my promo code SONNEN. Bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code SONNEN. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I did not know a ton about MMA, but I thought I did. I was even for a period of time a fake black belt, which is now something that it's like stolen valor. Terrible thing to do within our community. We did not have a community, which is the reason I didn't know the rules and the etiquette. Mark Schultz, who had fought Rickson Gracie, 20 minutes in a street fight, Olympic champion, world champion, NCAA champion, multiple times as a matter of fact. And he was my coach. I went to Brigham Young University, but I largely went there. Well, I went there fully to wrestle for Mark Schultz. But what was so appealing wasn't just his World Olympic Championships. It was that he had fought Rickson Gracie and learned the effectiveness of jiu-jitsu from Rickson. Went and got a black belt. And Rickson was in town the time that he and Mark fought to do an opening. A grand opening of Pedro Sauer's gym. And at that time, Pedro Sauer and his gym in Provo, Utah became the 6th Gracie certified gym in all of America. They had whatever they had going in Brazil that we would only hear about through rumors, and the internet was like this new thing if you had something called dial-up. And I mean, it's just a different world back then. And now you meet black belts all the time. But it wasn't that way back then. Boy, were they ever hard to come by. And this was Gracie certified. This is a big deal. So I'm going to Utah. I'm going to learn jiu-jitsu. And somewhere Mark Schultz tells me, and I had done either one, and if I'm wrong, it was 2, but I actually don't remember the second one. I think I had done one workout with Mark Schultz ever that was a jiu-jitsu workout. And if I'm wrong, it was 2, but somewhere along the way, he tells me that you're any belt that you're tough enough to wear. If you go to tournaments or somebody comes in and wants to challenge you, the way that works is it's belt for belt. If you come as a black belt, you challenge a fellow black belt. You come in as a purple belt, challenge a fellow purple belt. You go to a tournament, you enter, you sign up under your belt, you compete with that belt. He tells me you're whatever belt you say you are, as long as you're willing to back that up. So, after one workout, but I know things nobody knows. I knew something called an arm bar. I knew something called a guillotine. I was exposed to something known as a heel hook. I'm the most dangerous guy around. In large part, there's a lot of truth to that, as silly as you might think that is under today's standards. These were absolutely secret holds. Don't forget the internet wasn't around. Don't forget, as time, let's see, what are they getting ready to do? Because Tank Abbott came in, so 95, they're getting ready to do Ultimate 1. So it's very early. We don't even have enough footage from pay-per-views to know fully what works. So the fact that I knew a Kimura, yeah, I was a pretty dangerous guy, fake black belt. So I share that because fast forward the tape, BYU cuts their program. I end up in Eugene, and I'm taking Muay Thai lessons. But the Muay Thai lessons are just that, right? I got Marcus Lewis, but we're hitting pads. There was no sparring. Nobody sparred anywhere. It wasn't unique to us. But now I know kickboxing, right? Muay Thai. I know wrestling. I'm in Eugene on a wrestling scholarship. I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm about as ready for the UFC as you could be. This is the year of 1995. Well, fast forward the tape to the year 1999. Now I'm actually getting into it. Now Team Quest has just been formed. Randy had already been the heavyweight champion of the world. Dan had already made a pretty good run in Pride. And we've got an actual gym where we're actually now touching one another. We're actually putting gloves on, and we're going in and we're sparring, and like all these things that you think are so, you're now testing them to a degree. And somewhere along that way, I meet a guy named Dennis Honman. And Dennis Honman was a Matt Hume disciple. And Matt Hume is the master of mixed martial arts. That is not currently debated. There has not been a coach to step forward yet and try to take that helm from Matt Hume. What does that mean? Okay, great. You get 5 of the top coaches in the world, and they're in a locker room, and they're arguing about a technique, right? They're playfully and fun, but they're arguing. And I think you got to turn this way, and I think hey, your pinky's really got to be here. It's important that you lift your hips while your foot goes down. You're arguing about a technique. And nobody's conceding. They're telling, well, I saw George St-Pierre do this, and I learned this from Bruce Lee himself. Whatever it might be, if Matt Hume was to walk in the room and say, this is how you do the technique, that conversation will end. It will end right there. So I meet this guy named Dennis Honman, and he was a Matt Hume guy. And I'm doing a workout with Jeff Munson. So Jeff Munson brings Dennis Honman. Jeff and I have the workout lined up. He's got to drive 3 hours. Somewhere along the way, Jeff picks up Dennis Honman. I'm in the room with this guy named Dennis Honman. He's 155 pounds. He effed us up so bad. So bad. And Jeff was already the Abu Dhabi champion. Can't remember if he was the heavyweight or he was the absolute. But it was one of those two. The big ones. All right. He rolls us up so bad that he begins taunting. He's verbally abusing Jeff, and I'm seeing these things. And then it's my turn to go in, and I feel him, and that doesn't last long. And I go home, and I tell my dad that night, I have met the best fighter in the world. And Dennis had a fight not that long after. Brought him into the UFC, and we're going to fight him against Jens Pulver for a world championship. And Jens was our guy because he was Coach Van Trez's guy from Tillamook. But now he's going to face the guy that I told my dad is the baddest dude in the world. My dad bet $5,000 on Dennis Honman. My dad was a plumber. Like that was very hard to come by. So, all right. Fast forward, somewhere around 2004. Now, at this point, I met Evan Tanner, late great. I'm working out every day with Dan. Randy's got to be considered everybody's. Randy was the alpha male of every room that he was in. But up comes a guy from Hawaii that wants to train named BJ Penn. And after not only I worked out with BJ, but after I watched all the other guys in the room, the Ed Hermans, the Chris Liebens, the Matt Lindlands, I mean, you just go right through the room. Nate Corey's. After I watch Team Quest have a BJ Penn experience, I now know the best fighter in the world, BJ Penn. Truly, BJ, at a point in time, a long period of time, was the pound for pound GOAT. And at this point that I have this experience, by the way, he hasn't beaten Hughes yet. He hasn't become a world champion, let alone going to 55 and doing it again and having that full run. All right, so I got Dennis Honman, I got BJ Penn. Now I'm not counting Dan, Randy, Matt. I'm just not counting them because those are my guys. Those are my guys every single day. So I'm pushing them out of the conversation, right? You've heard me talk about Team Quest enough times. And then I have my own experience. Right? I meet this guy named Anderson Silva. And I meet this guy named Jon Jones. I meet this guy named Fedor Emelianenko. And just very, very special talents. But I just can't tell you that they were the best fighter that I knew. Because somewhere along the way, Kenny Florian, who was training me for a period of time, sets a workout up for me with a guy named George. And when I get there to go give this kid George, big deal. This guy was getting to work out with Chael Sonnen. I fought for world championships. Biggest draw was the highest, most monetizable athlete Dana had under contract. Hey, go help this kid George out. I'm going to help this kid George out because Kenny's been helping me out. Kenny wants me to help George out. Why did he call him George? It was GSP. Nobody calls him George. I get to the gym. It's George St-Pierre. And that was one of those moments, man. I remember the day, and I'm just going to go back when I met Dennis Honman. I remember going home and telling my dad, Dennis Honman's a 155-pounder. He had no shirt on. He wore a cup. He wore the cup, but outside of his shorts. You know that cup, but it's outside. So he looked ridiculous. We're in a fitness club where there was a little space that we made a wrestling room. It's like the aerobics room, but we're in there choosing to do jujitsu. And then you got moms and dads and business and professionals that are there lifting weights and they're doing the cardio machines. Or maybe they're chilling out a little bit with the hot tub. They're laughing at him. They were snickering and laughing at him. I went home and told my dad, that's the baddest dude in the world. And I was close. Turned out he was the second baddest dude in the world. Matt Hughes might argue. Matt Hughes might agree with me. Tell my dad that was a smart $5,000 bet. But the point is, I really remember that. And I really remember BJ Penn spent a whole week with us. And he kind of worked his way around the room. Everybody went by size at Team Quest. You know, hey, heavyweights over here. Hey, middleweights over here. It was really easy to know who your partners were going to be. Robert Follis was running the show, and he would break it up in that category. Yeah, hey, 55ers over here. Hey, middleweights over here. Heavyweights. Whatever it was. And there's only a few weight classes. 2 organizations, Pride, UFC. Pride was doing 5 events a year. UFC was doing 6 events a year. Strikeforce, Elite XC, Bellator, PFL, any way you want to call it. Ryzen, they didn't even exist. ONE FC didn't even exist. So girls weren't in the sport yet, and you could break the room up pretty fast. Hey, anybody 55 and under over there? Hey, get your 85 and 70 pounders. Hey, get your light heavyweights and heavyweights down there. But BJ would float up and down the room. All the rest of us would stay with our group. So over the course of BJ being there a week, I finally got a hold of him. Because he would float. I would see him going in Randy's group. And I think Tim Sylvia was in town at the time. I believe BJ Penn and Tim Sylvia worked out. I mean, if you just want to talk about discrepancies, but it was a very different mentality, those guys from that time. I had the same mentality. Couldn't possibly care what a guy weighed. I was on my 7th fight before I ever saw a scale. They didn't even weigh us in. All right. Now, I'm sharing that because over the course of the week, I finally get my hands on. I've been watching him, and I'm seeing some incredible things, but I finally feel it. I mean, he was so rubbery, and he was so slippery. There was one of those experiences, much like Dennis Honman, and I really can't compare. There was a big gap, right? From Honman in 99 to 2004, BJ, there was a gap there where I didn't have this experience. Now, fast forward, I'm having it again. It's with this guy, George. And it was a strength that's hard to explain in words. I cannot believe after I felt the strength of George St-Pierre, when he grabbed my wrist, I can't believe that the guys that fought, the John Hendrickses and the Matt Hughes, BJ Penn himself, I can't believe these opponents, Josh Koscheck, didn't come out and talk about that, talk about his strength. I never heard anybody talk about his strength. He looks like a cyborg and be all beautiful and muscle, and 170 pounds, come on. Come on, 170 pounds, please. He had this strength, and then his disciplined technique, his inability to get tired, and he would only go a little harder than you would go. I thought he was going all out. I knew I wasn't, so I turned it up a little bit. Well, within a second, he'd turn it up a little bit. I turned it up a little bit more. He turned it up a little bit more. And this kept happening. He'd let you pick it, but then he would just stay ahead of you. You couldn't get him tired. I get everybody tired. I can definitely get a guy smaller than me tired in a grappling situation. I'm on top of him. That's exhausting. There's a reason that they weigh you in. And when the whole thing is said and done, if I had to put the guy forward, who was the best guy I knew, and I personalized him. I mean, you had to feel him. You had to have personal experience. I got workouts with Daniel Cormier, and I could really name drop for you some really, really terrific guys. And they were all very special, and they were all very unique. But there isn't a period of time where I need to think. Some friend of Kenny Florian's, we'll call him George.